declared that he might recover the best parts of a church by the time the Rockery had been demolished. The interest of the gardener in such matters was of a milder kind. "We must go careful," he merely observed, "when we come to the organ." They went on, removing more and more stones, until at length the whole bank was laid bare, and Mr. Batchel's chief purpose achieved. How the stones were carefully arranged and set up in other parts of the garden is well known, and need not concern us now. One detail, however, must not be omitted. A large and stout stake of yew, evidently of considerable age, but nevertheless quite sound, stood exposed after the clearing of the bank. There was no obvious reason for its presence, but it had been well driven in, so well that the strength of the gardener, or, if it made any difference, of the gardener and Mr. Batchel together, failed even to shake it. It was not unsightly, and might have remained where it was, had not the gardener exclaimed, "This is the very thing we want for the pump." It was so obviously the very thing that its removal was then and there decided upon. The pump referred to was a small iron pump, used to draw water from the lode. It had been affixed to many posts in turn, and defied all of them to hold it. Not that the pump was at fault. It was a trifling affair enough, but the pumpers were usually garden boys, whose impatient energy had never failed, before many days, to wriggle the pump away from its supports. When the gardener had, upon one occasion, spent half a day in attaching it firmly to a post, they had at once shaken out the post itself. Since, therefore, the matter was causing daily inconvenience, and the gardener becoming daily more concerned for his reputation as a rough carpenter, it was natural for him to exclaim, "This is the very thing." It was a better stake than he had ever used, and, as had just been made evident, a stake that the ground would hold. "Yes," said Mr. Batchel, "it is the very thing, but can we get it up?" The gardener always accepted this kind of query as a challenge, and replied only by taking a pick and setting to work, Mr. Batchel, as usual, looking on, and making every now and then a fruitless suggestion. After a few minutes, however, he made somewhat more than a suggestion. He darted forward and laid his hand upon the pick. "Don't you see some copper?" he asked quickly. Every man who digs knows what a hiding place there is in the earth. The monotony of spade work is always relieved by a hope of turning up something unexpected. Treasure lies dimly behind all these hopes, so that the gardener, having seen Mr. Batchel excited over so much that was precious from his own point of view, was quite ready to look for something of value to an ordinary, reasonable man. Copper might lead to silver, and that in turn to gold. At Mr. Batchel's eager question, therefore, he peered into the hole he had made, and examined everything there that might suggest the rounded form of a coin. He soon saw what had arrested Mr. Batchel. There was a lustrous scratch on the side of the stake, evidently made by the pick, and though the metal was copper plainly enough, the gardener felt he had been deceived, and would have gone on with his work. Copper of that sort gave him no sort of excitement, and only a feeble interest. Mr. Batchel, however, was on his hands and knees. There was a small irregular plate of copper nailed to the stake. Without any difficulty he tore it away from the nails, and soon scraped it clean with a shaving of wood. Then, rising to his feet, he examined his find. There was an inscription upon it, so legible as to need no deciphering. It had been roughly and effectually made with a hammer and nail, the letters being formed by a series of holes punched deeply into the metal. And what he read was, "Move not this stake, November the 1st, 1702. But to move the stake was what Mr. Batchel had determined upon, and the metal plate he held in his hand interested him chiefly as showing how long the post had been there. He had happened, as he supposed, upon an ancient landmark. The discovery, recorded elsewhere, of a well near to the edge of his present lawn had showed him that his premises had once been differently arranged. One of the minor antiquarian tasks he had set himself was to discover and record the old arrangement, and he felt that the position of this stake would help him. He felt no doubt of its being a point upon the western limit of the garden, not improbably marked